Welcome to the 7 Pillar Podcast with Nick Ahmed and Mike Ahmed. We are brothers and former pro athletes who are now on mission to help athletes and coaches grow their mindset, expand their leadership, and elevate their performance.
Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. The truth is that transforming your life begins with transforming your mind. This podcast is built for athletes, coaches, competitors, and leaders who refuse to settle for average, who are ready to live with purpose, build a legacy, and defy the odds. Here, we talk about what it actually takes to live and perform on a higher plane, building your foundation on God and His truth, developing elite standards and eternal perspectives, and becoming fearless in the face of adversity. Because no one hands you a life worth living. You have to build it yourself. And it starts right now.
All right, welcome back to the 7 Pillar Podcast. We got episode number 3 here today, talking about the 5 keys to an elite mindset. Today, we're talking about the second key, which is anchored. Mike, you want to review what those 5 keys are for our audience?
Yeah, let's dive in. So last week we talked about the first key, which was aware. The 5 keys to an elite mindset in order are aware, anchored, which we'll be talking about today, proactive, persistent, and present. And so these 5 keys are the framework that we want to work through, that we want to live by to help us create and maintain an elite mindset. If we do these 5 things, if we become aware, if we are anchored, if we're proactive, persistent, and present, we are going to create that elite mindset. We're going to be able to withstand any storm, any temptation, any success that we have. But it starts with aware. Last week, we dove in a little bit more. One thing that we can do, one practical takeaway is start asking good questions, right? If we start asking good questions, we become aware of how we've been living, how we've been performing, how we want to perform, how we want to live, and then what we need to change in order to get there. So it all starts with awareness, right? We can't make any changes in our life, any positive changes, unless we're aware of where we are and where we want to go. So number 1 is start asking good questions. And then number 2 is let's become aware of our inputs and what is forming us both as athletes and as people. So our inputs create our outputs in life, simply put, right? So we want to be very aware and very intentional about what we're putting into our mind and our spirit. That's going to shape who we're becoming on and off the field. So, that's the music that you listen to. That's what you're reading. That's what, podcasts you're listening to, friend group, your peers, all the above and more. So we want to become aware of those inputs and how they're shaping us both as an athlete and as a person.
Yeah, what I want you guys to catch here from what Mike's saying is how intentional this is. No one's ever going to stumble into an elite mindset. It takes work, right? And we're here to help you guys build that foundation and create that elite mindset. So talking about inputs, Mike, and continuing to review from last session, give me last week, what's the best input that you've had in your life that's helped shape the mindset that you want to have?
It's come from both ways that I read on a daily basis. So number 1, it's been the Bible and my time diving into the Bible, into the Word of God every single day. And then secondly, on top of that is the second piece that I'm diving into is some sort of performance coaching, mindset, nutrition, some other content that I'm diving into that's going to help make me a better coach, help inform me as to some best practices. But the Bible, and then this past week, I've been diving into a book by a performance coach named Bob Rotella called "Golf Is Not a Game of Perfect." So those 2 things this past week have been pretty formational for me.
I love it. I love it. Intentionally choosing what we read, forming our mindset. So, Mike, we're talking about anchored today. If you were to define an anchor, right? An anchor is something that holds something steady, right? Exactly. A ship, a boat in a body of water, usually. So an anchor is a heavy object thrown overboard, connected to a chain that's going to hold the boat or the ship in place, right? Keep it in one spot, keep it in the preferred location, keep it from drifting off course, essentially. So as we talk about anchored, right? This is what this is going to do for our mindset. If we have something strong and sturdy that we're anchored to, it's going to keep us personally, individually, with our careers, with our jobs, with our education, with whatever we're pursuing in life. It's going to keep us in that strong and steady position and afraid of drifting away from where we want to be. So the anchor is super important. It's a metaphor we love using. It's something we're going to talk about a lot in depth today.
Yeah, that's great. Another way that we think about this, and it's a very similar concept, is what's your foundation, right? Like, what are you building your life on? I think those two terms can kind of be used interchangeably. I mean, we talk a lot about identity. That anchors us, that provides us with the foundation. So, if we're diving into our performance skills, our mental skills, without first really establishing that foundation, establishing good anchor,
Mm.
we may see some marginal gains, some marginal improvements, but again, we're really kind of chasing the wrong thing. We want to make sure that our foundation is set first, that we're anchored to, you know, the best perspectives, the best beliefs, the best practices, so that that can now inform how I perform on the field, right? That's going to pour out into my on-field performance. It's going to limit my anxiety. It's going to, raise the freedom that I play in on a daily basis. It's going to give me a hope outside of my sport. It's going to give me a greater purpose and meaning in my life. So again, if that foundation isn't there, that anchor isn't there, right? If we can work on performance skills till we're blue in the face, and that may help, a little bit with performance on the field, but we're missing a big piece of. We're missing, I would say, the biggest piece of it, right?
Yeah, if I were to ask you as a young athlete, Mike, whether it's high school, college, young professional athlete, what would you say you anchored yourself to? What was your anchor?
My anchor was probably non-existent, or it was what's the next step that I can get to. And it was always the next thing, always the next thing. So it was, from having a successful high school career to, going to the Division 1 college that I want to go to and play there, to having success there, to getting drafted, et cetera, all the way up. Right. So like there's always going to be that next step, and it's not that we don't want to chase good things, right? We can still chase this and have the pursuit of excellence and have these goals in mind. We just can't put them number one and have that the foundation for our life. Because, like, sometimes we're not going to get there. Sometimes we're going to get hurt. Sometimes we're going to get sick. Sometimes the coach is going to play somebody else and we have no control over that. So, again, it's not that we're not chasing these things or pursuing these things. It's just we're not making them our anchor, our foundation, or our number one priority.
Yeah,
Right.
that's good. It's good. I appreciate the honesty. I was in the same place for a very long time. So with an anchor that was either non-existent or an anchor that was moving, right? A moving target. How did you feel like that affected your mindset, number one, your performance on the field, and then just you as a person off the field as well?
Yeah, I mean, it it wasn't great. I mean, there were times too, especially I remember when I was playing in the Cape League, and this is just one incident, but I had a really good start to the season that year, but my performance slowly was going downhill. I felt like my stats were slipping away from me. I wasn't having a good season, and it was one game we were playing at Orleans. I remember this distinctly. um, I got out. It might have been a bad call by the umpire. Something, it just wasn't going my way. I just remember going back to the dugout, very honestly, slamming my helmet into the box where my helmet went. And I don't like that. That was part of who I was at the time. But that was essentially because I had put my foundation in my success as a baseball player, and I let my emotions get a hold of me and change how I responded and how I reacted to something, whether it was a poor performance or a bad call by the umpire, something going on the field. But, that was just one example. There were other examples, maybe not that extreme, where because I didn't have a good anchor, the things that happened to me on and off the field, I reacted to instead of maybe responding to in a really good way. What
Yeah.
about you? Anything that come to mind for you?
Yeah, that's good. Specific example, not really. I just remember riding the roller coaster of ups and downs,
Yeah.
especially early on in the minor leagues, going through really my first taste of failure on the field, struggling at the professional level. I remember riding the bus. I remember looking out the window on these long 10, 12-hour bus rides, after a bad series, after an 0 for 4 game with 2 strikeouts and just struggling to find peace, steadiness, purpose, knowing that I was defining myself by my success, by my stats, what other people thought about me, but knowing that I had nothing to keep me grounded, right? Another thing an anchor does is it keeps us grounded, right? I talk about it keeping us in one place. But it also keeps us connected to the ground. It keeps us humble. It keeps us focused. When we don't have that anchor, we just float, we just drift. So I felt like I was floating and drifting all the time. a good game, a bad game. I was one way this way, one way that way. I never really had that steady consistency in life. So now on the other side of it, right, knowing that I've grounded myself and you have as well to God and his word as our foundation, let's review again Matthew chapter 7,
Mhm.
starting at verse 24. This is Jesus's words again at the end of the Sermon on the Mount. He says, anyone who listens to my teaching and follows it is wise, like a person who builds a house on solid rock. Though the rain comes in torrents and the floodwaters rise and the winds beat against that house, it won't collapse because it is built on bedrock. But anyone who hears my teaching and doesn't obey it is foolish, like a person who builds a house on sand. When the rains and floods come and the winds beat against that house, it will collapse with a mighty crash. So for me, at that time, I was in the minor leagues. I was struggling. I was going through a period of failure on the field like I never had experienced before, dealing with some adversity off the field as well. I just felt like I had no foundation. I felt like the storms of life were coming. My anchor wasn't connected to anything solid and sturdy. And I was just drifting and blowing by the currents of what was happening in my circumstances. So now being on the other side of it, having gone through a whole professional career now, playing at the highest level, knowing the difference of what it's like to anchor myself to basically nothing, to something that's in sand, or to anchor myself to something that's solid, the rock of Jesus and his unchanging word. Man, the amount of freedom, peace, and power that gives is so important. That's why we're doing this whole thing here.
Quick break from today's episode. So here's the truth. We've done the research, and only 5.1% of elite athletes and coaches are actually training their mind on a daily basis. That is exactly why we built our 7-pillar mindset training app. To join our 7-pillar community and start training your mind, leadership, and performance today, subscribe to our one-of-a-kind training app at app.7pillar.co/memberships. You'll be joining athletes, coaches, and leaders seeking to become the best versions of themselves, both on and off the field. For 10% off your first year, use code PODCAST10 at checkout. All right, now back to today's episode.
Yeah. I mean, that's so powerful. I mean, just to summarize this and kind of wrap it in a bow here, right? Like if our anchor, if our foundation is built on performance, is built on our stat line, it's built on what other people think about us, it's built on, getting to the next level, whatever that is, wherever you are right now, right, that's not going to be a great anchor. That's going to be like an anchor or a foundation that's built on sand, right? Um, And when we think about having a really good anchor, right? We need to have an anchor that is attached to something, built on something that is not going to change from now until the end of our lives, right? So it's like that unchanging thing, those unchanging beliefs that are going to help anchor us, right? If our beliefs are going here, if our self-confidence is going here, right? There's no anchor there. If our performance is going here, excuse me, there is no anchor to hold us in place, to keep us steady. We talk about this, right? In adversity, in temptation, in success, right? There's nothing to keep us steady and help us pursuing the things that we want to pursue, at least being intentional about it, right? So those are kind of like the non-existent or the bad anchors. What do we do? What do we want to anchor ourselves to? Okay, the unchanging truths of God word and who he says we are, right? Like our identity. Where's our value come from? What story we're telling for our lives? And we'll get into this more today, but I think a big piece of this is developing a purpose and a mission statement for your life. Like Nick, you said, is none of this, and when we talk about developing an elite mindset, none of this is unintentional. Everything has to be intentional about what you're doing and where you're going. Right? Otherwise, again, there's not going to be that anchor for you. There's not going to be that plan or that framework that you can go by. That's going to help improve you as a person, as an athlete, and keep you steady in whatever life throws at you. Um, so again, like that anchor for us is, what are we grounding our beliefs in? What is our top priority in life? And how do we develop our purpose and mission on top of that? Right.
Yeah, so I think with our purpose and mission, talking about that, it's important to know that for what Mike and I both share, the original anchor or the original purpose and mission we had in our lives was mostly something outside of our control. So a main point that we have to understand when we create a purpose and mission for our life and we step into that, it has to be something that's fully within our control. It can't be something that changes with circumstances, with time, with place, with opportunity. It has to be something that you can carry with you no matter what you do for a job, no matter where you live, no matter how old you are, no matter what other things are going on around you. Your purpose and mission have to be grounded in something that's fully within your control. Okay. So that's the trap, guys, is what we've done for too long early on in our careers was to create a purpose and a mission based on our stats, based on our performance, based on what level we're at, the success that we're having, or the failure we're having when it's not going great. So continue to remind yourselves of like, hey, this is really important. We have to create this purpose and mission outside of our performance, outside of the things we can't control, and bring it to something that is so solid and so sturdy that it's immovable, right? You talked about a few things, but I want to add character, right? Who are you as a person? We talk about identity a lot, but what are the important intangibles and standards that you stand for as a person? A couple of my big ones are integrity and respect, right? If I operate with integrity and respect, I know that each and every day I can do that, right? That's fully within my control. I can treat people how they should be treated and deserve to be treated in God's eyes with value and dignity and all that. And then I can go out and be a man of integrity. I can do the right thing in all situations. That's a choice that's up to me. That has nothing to do with anything that's outside my control.
Yeah, that's great, bro. I mean, when we dive into this and I work with my one-on-one clients, one of the first things I ask them, hey, like what are the top values that you have as an individual? And they list them out and we'll say, okay, are you living out those values right now? And some of them are for most of them, but every single one of them is not living up to those values or those standards that they set. And so that's a very easy place for us to start, right? Like it's living those out, whether we call them standards or values, right? Like those are under our control and those are going to help make us into the best versions of ourselves if we live those out on a daily basis. Um,
Yeah.
so
I think I want to talk to you a little more about purpose. I love that. But purpose
yeah,
also just understanding and asking the big questions of like, hey, why do I exist? Why am I here? When we
yeah,
start to ask ourselves these big questions, we understand that life isn't all about us, me, myself, and I, right? It's about a bigger purpose than that. So you ask yourself, hey, why do I exist? Why did God create me? What am I put out here on this earth to do? You start to understand really quickly the sand that you built your life on and know that there is something greater out there. We all have that deep inside of us. We all know we were created for something great and that God has a great plan for our life. Even if we struggled or face trauma or adversity at a high level, we know deep down that we have a great purpose and mission in life. So trying to ask those big questions is kind of how we start to uncover that.
yeah. Again, it comes back to asking big questions, right? Asking questions, become aware. Where are you at right now? Like, are your beliefs that you have, are you living those out or are you falling short? Do you even know what your beliefs are? And I think, again, for everybody, no matter where you are, I think you have to ask those questions and continue to ask those questions. In some way, hold yourself accountable. um, you know, purpose can kind of be somewhat vague, right? Like another easy thing that I like to think about is really just like what's your top priority? What are you pursuing most on a daily basis? Right? What's the most important thing in your life? If it's sports, if it's athletics, again, it comes back to like that's not going to be a great foundation, right? Your performances change, your your level within your sport changes. So that is not a good foundation. That's not a good anchor for us. So we have to find something outside of sport that's going to anchor us. Ephesians 2, chapter 2, verse 10 says, "For we are God's masterpiece. He has created us anew in Christ Jesus, so we can do good things He planned for us long ago." So that's speaking to something bigger, which you alluded to. Like God has a plan for us. He created us specifically for a purpose, right? So we want to walk every day with the belief and the perspective that I was made for a purpose, that everything that I do matters, right? And that I'm doing these things on purpose for a purpose, right? Those two pieces are very important. So for me, my purpose in all of life is, I exist, this is how I like to start out. I exist to know and enjoy God, to become like Jesus, and to build God's kingdom, right? Like for me, that is what I am here to do. That is why I exist. So if I can come to know and enjoy God and do that on a daily basis, if I'm working to become more like Jesus, forming myself to become more like Jesus, and trying to build God's kingdom, if those three things are my number one priority, right, I'm going to have a very good foundation. I'm going to be anchored to something that doesn't change. And those things are well under my control to live out on a daily basis.
Yep. I love that. Super practical. So if there was, one or two big questions that you started to ask besides, why do you exist? Like just trying to help people understand how do they get to their purpose or mission. Could you clarify for everyone listening, what some of those questions might be that either you ask yourself or that you ask your current clients right now that you work with?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one of them right now is one of the biggest ones is what is the top priority in your life? Like, what are you giving your attention to the most? And I was just having this conversation this morning with my clients, but it's not always about what are you spending most time on, right? Like, doesn't we're talking about developing your purpose and understanding what your top priorities should be. It doesn't mean that you have to sit down and read the Bible 6 hours a day and then neglect all the other things that you have to do, right? But like our top priority is not our stat line, not baseball, not whatever sport I'm playing, but it's the type of person that I want to become and what I am doing to form me into that type of person. Again,
Mm,
it all starts at the beginning because the person that I'm becoming is going to, pour out and build myself up as an athlete, as a leader, in my career, in school. So again, the biggest thing is like, what is your number one priority? What is the most important thing for you right now?
Yeah,
Do you
I
have any?
love that. Yeah, I love that. I love how you pointed out too. It doesn't have to be where you spend the most time, but it has to be your main focus and priority. So, thinking about your purpose, right? That's something that you can live out and keep your priority no matter what you're doing in life, right? Whether you're at home with your wife and kids, whether you're
Yeah,
working, whether you're studying, whether you're doing anything above, all different categories of your life, you can live out your purpose in all of those circumstances. That makes sense?
yeah, absolutely. And not only right now, but from day one right now to a year down the road, 5 years down the road, 100 years down the road, right? That is and should be true for me every single day. Again, no matter when and no matter where. So I think that's we talk about an anchor that's not changing, right? It doesn't change with where I'm at or what part of my life or what season of life I'm in. That's a pretty good anchor, I would say.
Yeah, I have a quote that I want to share here. We write daily meditations on our 7 pillar app. One of the quotes we're going to actually use, or at the time of this recording, we use in the future, but when the podcast is launched, it will be in the past. Sorry for the confusing timeline there, but one of these quotes we're going to use is all the water in the world, no matter how hard it tried, could never sink a ship unless it got inside. Okay. So a little bit of rhyme in there, a little bit of poem action to it. But what I want everyone to understand here is that there's water or waves or storms or sand or wind, whatever you want to call it, swirling all around us, right? Trying to sink us, trying to get inside and take us down, right? So, my question for you, living out your purpose, how do you navigate the storms, the wind, the waters of life and not allow what's around you to get inside you? And how does your purpose and anchor help you accomplish that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, every day we're going to have different things coming at us, right? But if I'm intentional about number one, thinking about these things, but writing them out and developing my purpose, right? Like I know what it is that I'm doing on a daily basis, right? I know that because this informs who I am, it's going to inform how I act, how I respond, and my habits on a daily basis. So it doesn't really matter what happens to me if I have my purpose and I'm living my purpose. All of the things outside of what I control kind of become noise, right? Like I can drown them out a little bit easier because I know what I'm doing, but also because my ultimate hope is not in those things outside of my control. So it's much easier to say, hey, like I can do X, Y, and Z. If it doesn't go the way that I want, that's okay. I'm still good. I know exactly where I'm going. My true hope, my eternal hope is not in those things that I may want to accomplish today or tomorrow or 5 years down the road, right? It's in who Jesus was, his work, and his word.
Yep.
And if my hope is in that, that's going to inform my purpose, right? And again, all the things that happen to me outside of me just become white noise. They become the waves that are bouncing off the ship instead of getting inside, right?
Yeah, that's hard. I think for athletes and coaches, there's often so much going on around you that you can't control, whether it's decisions at the other, somebody the coach makes, it's how the other team responds, it's umpires, it's referees, it's so much noise like you're talking about outside. And learning to have a strong anchor and purpose. I know it helps create focus in life, create focus on the field for you to not give in to those things, right? Because at the end of the day, those are distractions and temptations that try to steal our focus away from what's most important and then what's most important right here in this moment. So I love that it creates a different level of focus for us and allows us to recognize, okay, is this most important or is this something that's noise and distraction on the outside?
Yeah, I think a lot of times too when we get distracted or we have like those times of anxiety, right? A lot of times that happens because we want that certainty that everything is going to go the way that I plan it to go.
Yeah.
That's just not life. That's not the case. It's not, we can try as hard as we want, work as hard as we want. That's not always the case that we're going to have the exact results that we want, right? So we can't be striving for certainty in our lives. We actually like if we're able to surrender the results, surrender the certainty that we really want, that we crave, right? It's a lot easier to view those things as noise outside of us. It's a lot easier to view those things as again the waves crashing up against the boat, um, because my mindset, my attitude, my mood is not dependent on those things. It's dependent on the things that I can control and what I'm doing, right? And again,
Yeah.
most importantly, my hope outside of baseball, right? My eternal hope.
Yep.
So, does that make sense?
For sure. For sure.
Yeah.
I think the next thing I want to touch on here is that purpose and mission. We've got both of those words, talked a lot about purpose here. You shared your personal purpose. Can you just touch on, because I know you got a good way about talking about the difference between purpose and mission. Some people want to lump them together. I know you and I have had this conversation a couple times, but can you explain the difference for everyone, what the difference between a purpose and a mission is?
Yeah. I've actually spent, a lot of time in thought and like for me, because when I was first started thinking about these things, like all of it was kind of vague. And it was like, okay, I have a purpose. I don't really know what it is. Mission is kind of the same thing, but maybe a little bit different. So it's like,
Yeah.
it was hard for me to really like understand the different terminology that was out there. And so that's why I was like, again, asking myself questions like, how can I distill this and make a little bit more sense out of this? So for me, right, my purpose is going to be what I'm striving for whenever, like whatever season of life I'm in and wherever I'm at, whether it's got my spikes on or I'm coaching or I'm going to sleep. It doesn't matter. Like my purpose is my purpose and it's not going to change.
Mm.
The way that I like to think about mission is it's a little bit more specific to what you're doing in the moment, right? So, like, I want to have a mission statement for if I'm an athlete, right? I want to have a mission statement for myself as a baseball player. Say I'm a collegiate athlete, right? I want to have a mission statement for me as a baseball player. I want to have a mission statement for myself as a student, right? And it's just like the framework or the standards or the goals that you're going to live by within those areas. But same thing true for purposes. Like those are going to be under your control no matter what, right? So they're still controllable things, but it's just a little bit more specific for specific areas of your life.
Yeah.
That's like it's going to look different if you're a coach, if you're an athlete, if you're older, younger. It doesn't really matter, but a few of the top priority areas in your life, you want to start creating those mission statements. Just basically the standards that you want to live by in those areas.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you've got a great mission statement you shared with me before. You want to give us your mission statement here right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So my mission statement for my career is I want to empower athletes and coaches to live and perform with greater peace, joy, and purpose through transformative and personal mentorship. So
Mm.
again, all of that for me is like it's under my control. Like I'm not striving for results. Right? I can create a vision and maybe see where I want to be in 5, 10 years. But if I live this way on a daily basis, if I'm living to empower athletes and coaches to live and perform with greater peace, joy, and purpose, right? Like I can execute that very well on a daily basis. And I can look at the end of the day and say, hey, did I execute my mission in this area? And again, this is another piece that's going to ground you, right? Like we're not, because I have my mission, I am not striving for those results. And the way that I actually like to define success, a lot of people define success based on the results on the field. What I do with my clients is say, hey, like success is not necessarily the output on the field, right? Is it important? Sure, I'm not negating the importance of your performance, right? It matters, but we're not chasing it, we're not pursuing it. So the way that I like to define success on a daily basis is I had a successful day if I lived out my mission statement 100%.
Mm.
And guess what happens, dude? If you do that on a daily basis consistently over time, you think you're going to be in a better or worse place 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now?
100%. I love that.
You're in a
Focusing
better
on
place.
long-term growth by dominating what's in your control today. That's so good. So another way I like to talk about it is like purpose and mission. What are the two differences? The way I think about purpose and try to explain it is that it's God-centered, right? So it has to do with our vertical relationship with God and how that plays out in our day-to-day life. And a mission for me is that it's going to be people-centered, right? It's going to be others focused. So what your mission is really good at accomplishing and how simple it is it's not about you, right? It's not about your success and your business and your money and your whatever. Yours is about empowering, right? I love the first word, empower, right? That's all about what other people are, or what you can do for other people, right? So when we create our mission statements, the best mission statements are going to be ones that are crafted to have great impact in the world and the lives of the people around you. So just wanted to point that out, the difference between purpose and mission, right? Purpose being God, focus, our vertical relationship here, and then mission being horizontally focused with the people around us and the impact that we can have there.
Yeah, that's an awesome distinction, bro. Like I love thinking about that vertical versus horizontal.
Yep.
Um, like with both of these things, right? These aren't goals that we can achieve with our purpose or with, you know, living on mission for other people. It's something that we're going to do every single day. I'm going to continue to come back, do the same thing today as I did yesterday, as I will tomorrow. So like we're never really achieving these things. This is just the framework for how I want to live, right? The standards, like
Yeah.
what standards do I need to use to help serve people horizontally, right? And that's a really good, basis for a mission statement.
Yeah.
Um,
Good.
how does
Good.
that? Let me ask you this: as an athlete, how would you view that in terms of a mission statement as an athlete when you show up to
Yeah.
the field?
Yeah, I think it's hard because, you think about being an athlete, you think about being a professional athlete or even college or high school. It's kind of about you and your career to a certain degree. You want to be focused on the team, you want to help the team win and be a team player and all that. But, you're the only one that steps in the batter's box or to the free throw line or doing whatever you do with the golf club in your hand. Like you're the only one doing it. So there is an individual component to your career, but just trying to make sure that every single day I showed up to the field, that it wasn't about me and my career. So I give this analogy all the time. I used to show up to the yard every day with horse blinders on, right? I had to have this really narrow focus to focus on me and my personal mission, attacking my goals and my routine. And I couldn't really see what's happening around me. So once I started to really develop an others focused mission that wasn't about me all the time, I learned how to take the blinders off. I learned how to see the people around me. I learned how to be a better teammate, a great leader, and make a great impact on the team and organization as a whole and leave a legacy that was going to last far beyond any home runs or diving plays that I made. So it just was a difficult process, but over time and intentionality and discipline with it, I learned how to take the focus off me and pour it into my teammates and the people around me.
Yeah, that's great, bro. Do you feel like that took some of the pressure off for you to perform on a daily basis?
For sure. Yeah. I was going to touch on this too. Like, it didn't negate the fact that I was the hardest working, most disciplined, most prepared player on my team. Like, that was always a goal of mine and part of my mission to do that and lead by example that way, be the most prepared, hardest working, most competitive athlete I could be, right, in the batter's box on the field. But it did create some freedom because I knew that my success, my value wasn't determined by the result. It was determined by how I went about my business, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
it did give me more freedom. It gave me the ability to be more present in the moment, not worry about a bad game or bad at bat behind me or the possibility of what could happen in the future outside my control.
Yeah, you said a big word there was just value, right? And as athletes and coaches, like we can create value in different ways. It doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily have to become only from our box score. In fact, it doesn't only come from our box score. So if you want to be the best, if you want to get the most out of your career, right? It's not only about your stat line or your box score. It's like how can you provide the most value for your team?
Mm.
That comes from playing different positions on the field, being open to play a position that you might not be comfortable with. It comes from, picking up your teammates, encouraging your teammates. It comes from a bunch of different things. So if we're trying to become the best player we can, we're going to try to provide the most value that we can. That means taking care of what we have to do as individuals, working as hard as we can, working harder than anybody else, but also not having those horse planners on that, as you said, and like saying, hey, how can I provide value in other ways? And that's not going to take away from your performance on the field. In fact, if anything, it's going to free you up to play with less anxiety and less pressure, because again, that's not the only way that you provide value for yourself and for the team.
Yeah, I love that. So as we get ready to wrap up here, I think you mentioned a lot of important things, and what we're existing to do here at Seven Pillar, part of our mission is to help empower athletes and coaches to build a foundation for success in their sport and their life. So it's important for us. We're here to help liberate people from the bondage of performance-based identity and creating value in their performance and the results, success, things outside of their control. So as we get ready to wrap up here, we want to remind you guys we want to be doers of the word, right? Not just hearers of it. So we want to take practical action steps each and every time you guys come and listen to a podcast to help you guys get ready to move forward into a brighter and better future. So you want to ask yourself this week, as an objective observer of the past 5 years of your life, what would you say your anchor has been? Right. This is a time to be aware, going back to our first key, right? But we want to ask ourselves and be honest. Look at yourself in the mirror, right? Ask yourself, hey, what is my anchor been these last 5 years? Okay, it doesn't always have to be a good thing, right? For me, I've shared personally that a lot of my life, especially going up into the minor leagues as a professional, I had a bad anchor, a non-existent anchor, like you said. So be honest with yourself. That's the first place to start.
Yeah, I think another good way to think about it too is like, what have you been pursuing? What has been most important to you over the past 5 years? Um, and again, like just be as honest as you possibly can with yourself. There's no right or wrong answer, right? It's just, for the past 5 years, honestly self evaluate where you've been. And maybe on top of that, consider the output that that has brought you, right? Has it brought you peace or has it brought you anxiety? Has it brought you better performance or has it brought you worse performance? Has it brought you, having more fun as an athlete or a coach, or having less fun and dreading to go to the park sometimes? So be honest and ask yourself that question, right? What's your anchor been? And then based on that, say, hey, like, okay, has this brought me good things in my life? Or has it been something that's kind of like pushing me towards more anxiety, burnout, or all these negative things that we can think about health, mental health in sports?
Yeah.
Um,
So you
and then
reflect.
what? Yeah,
I was
go
going
ahead.
to say, as you reflect on your anchor, I think it's important to say, okay, if I'm not in a good place, if my anchor, if my foundation isn't providing me the things that you're talking about, it's time to reevaluate. It's time to create a new foundation. It's time to drop the anchor in a new and different place. So give
Yeah.
yourself some time this week to reflect on it, pray about it, write it down in the journal, talk to somebody that you can trust and help work through this issue with. But it's so important, guys. You have to create a foundation that's strong and sturdy to build your life on. Mike and I have personally done that on Jesus and his word and who he says we are. We think that's the only way to have that true, unshakable peace and steadiness and purpose in your life. So we encourage you guys to take that seriously, reflect on your anchor from the last 5 years, right? And if it's not in a good place, start to build it in a really good one.
Thank you for tuning in with us today. If this episode brought you value, please share it with someone in your circle who needs to hear this message. Be sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode, and don't forget to leave a rating and review. Every share, follow, and review helps us reach more people and make a greater impact. Because at the end of the day, this is about more than content. It's about growth, purpose, and stepping fully into who you were created to be.